Welcome to the Choice Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Nastasha McKeon, founder and CEO of Choice Juicery, author of Plant Food is Medicine, and naturally a health, wellness, and mindfulness enthusiast. I believe that happiness is a choice, and I built my company upon this ethos. This show is a platform where we will discuss all things health, wellness, and mindfulness in hopes of inspiring you further on your journey. We will be sharing inspiring stories, health, wellness, and mindfulness hacks, as well as anything else pertaining to living your best choice life. My hope is that you may hear something on every episode of this podcast that will genuinely be of value in your life. Welcome back to the Choice Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Nastasha McKeon, founder and CEO of Choice Juicery and author of Plant Food is Medicine, a cookbook with over 100 gluten-free and plant-based recipes. And this episode, as well as every other episode, is sponsored by Choice Juicery. So if you want to support this show, you can do so by visiting us online at choicejuicery.com and shopping our online store, where we have dozens of incredible products that we're shipping online, from our elixir line to our bread, which is the best gluten-free bread that you've ever had. Don't just take it from me, read the reviews online. Lots of happy customers. We're also shipping our plant-based protein powder and our power greens, my absolute favorite green drink. Just one scoop, get your daily greens in there with some prebiotics and some protein. And actually really wonderfully neutral taste to it, so you can add it to all kinds of fun things. So lots of stuff online. Also, my book is available online. So yeah, if you don't have a copy, grab yourself a copy. It's one way to support the show. Another way would be, if you are lucky enough to be in Southern California, we have 7 locations, with 6 being in San Diego and 1 being in Orange County down in San Clemente. So pop on into one of the shops and get yourself some healthy goodies while also supporting this podcast. I'm always saying I'm excited about today's guest, but today I'm really excited about today's guest. Davidji is a globally recognized mind-body health and wellness expert. He's a mindful performance trainer, meditation teacher, and author of the newly released Sacred Powers, which I'm actually reading right now. And I'll share with you, I have another book that I'm reading for my book club that I run, and I put this book on, and now I have to finish it before I go back to my book club book because I'm completely hooked. It's one of those books that just grips you. Such an incredible read so far. He also authored an Amazon's bestseller, De-Stressifying and Secrets of Meditation. He's most known as the Velvet Voice of Stillness. Davidji is the most prolific creator of guided meditations in the world, with over 1,000 guided meditations available across many different platforms such as Apple, Amazon, Hay House, Spotify, just to name a few. So Davidji and I, while we haven't met in person, I've been hearing his name for years. You guys know I've been running Choice. I opened it just about 10 years ago. I guess June was our 10-year anniversary. And so almost from the very beginning, I mean, I'm talking like the first few months of being in business at Choice, I remember working behind the counter and having these people come up and say, oh, we're so excited to be here. We heard all about Choice from Davidji. We're here for his meditation retreat, and he told us to come into Choice. And so I've been hearing this, for years, like I said, from the very beginning. And then recently, my favorite yoga teacher, who I had on the podcast actually, Donnie Starkins. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's a great episode. But he referred to Davidji in that episode, as well as just in my yoga classes that I take of his and in his online content. He refers to him quite a bit because Davidji is his meditation teacher. And so he has been in my field for a while. This meeting is long overdue. He is a big fan of Choice, and I am more recently, I would say, a fan of his. So I'm excited to get him on here and just chat with him. When I was thinking about who I wanted to bring onto the podcast to talk about meditation, he is the one who came to mind, the first person that came to mind. I wanted to have a fun conversation around meditation. Meditation has been a huge part of my transformation in my life. And I thought, God, it'd be so great to get an expert on here about meditation. So who better than, the person who's, created the most guided meditations in the world, other than Davidji. So let's get him on here and dive right into this fun conversation. Davidji, thank you so much for joining me today on the Choice Lifestyle Podcast. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm a big fan. a big ambassador for Choice Juicery, and it's my pleasure to connect to your audience. So thank you.
Of course, of course. Yeah. So I've been hearing your name for years. It started off literally 10 years ago when I opened my first store. Might have been somewhere around there, a few months into opening. I remember I had a big group of people come into the store one day. I was working behind the counter and they said, Davidji sent us in here. He says it's the best. And I was like, who's this Davidji guy? And that just became the common theme. I would hear this name and people would say they were there for a meditation retreat. And I'd always had it pinned to like, I need to look this guy up. Like, meditation is up my alley. Like, who is this person? And then fast forward years later, my favorite yoga teacher and also dear friend Donnie Starkins, who was recently on the podcast as well, he was talking about you on the podcast. I'm like, wait, this is the same Davidji that guests have been talking about for years. So naturally, when I decided I want to do a podcast on meditation, of course, you were the first person that came to mind. So it's such a cool thing to have this manifest this way.
Beautiful.
So,
Thank you.
of course, of course. So, in preparation for the podcast, I was doing a little bit of research on you and I found one of your books. I think it's one of the newer ones that you released, Sacred Powers.
Yeah.
And I downloaded it with the intention of finishing the current book I'm working on for my book club that I host and then reading your book. But, I was like curious. So I listened to a few minutes and then I couldn't shut it off. And now I can't go back to the other book. I have to finish this one. It's so good so far. I think what I absolutely loved is that you open up with one of my favorite little, folk tales about the Cherokee grandfather talking to his grandson about the two wolves. That resonates with me because that's a story that I've been sharing for years. And I didn't really know where it came from, but I heard the story about the two wolves inside of you. And it's a story that I've used to talk to my kids and teach my kids over the years. My daughter always says, well, I wanted to do this thing. And I'm like, yeah, but we all have these two wolves inside of us. And I tell her the story about how they're, in a battle and whichever one you feed is the one that's going to win the battle. And so I love that your book opens up with that. And then further, and I'm not through it yet, but further, the butterfly moments are incredible. And I'm just excited to talk about meditation, about your book, about your experience. I'd love to start just by talking a little bit to the audience, kind of going back to that story of how you were, 18 years into a career and you're, walking down the streets. I think you were in New York at the time. And you had one of these first butterfly moments that kind of started the change for you and changed everything. If you don't mind kind of sharing that story with the audience, I'd love to start there.
Sure. And I believe we all have these experiences, and maybe we think, what just happened there? But I refer to them as butterfly moments. And they're those moments where you're so fully present and so fully aligned or in flow or in the zone where there is nothing else, just that moment. And so in the wake of 9/11, I was walking in southern Manhattan past a row of cardboard boxes that people were living in, just thinking about whatever, obviously in grief mode, after because I worked on the 82nd floor of Tower
Wow.
2 of the World Trade Center for a bunch of years. And suddenly, as I walked past this one box that somebody was living in, a hand reached out, grabbed my pant leg, and pulled me down so that our faces were maybe 2 inches apart. And these blue crystalline eyes, I'll never forget these. They're etched into me. This man said to me, "What's going to be on your tombstone?" And it was such a powerful moment because there was traffic and there was noise and there was conversation and there was the sound of the city. And then in that moment, whoosh, it was all gone. And it was like me and this person were the only beings on the planet. We were just fully embraced in that moment. And that's a fairly reflective question. What's going to be on your tombstone? And
Yes.
it felt like we were locked in gaze for hours. It was probably just a few minutes, but it was just it was timeless. And ultimately he, released his grip on me. I started to walk away. My heart was palpitating. I was hyperventilating. Tears were streaming down my face. My knees were weak. And I staggered over maybe 20 feet to sit on the steps of an apartment building outside and asked myself, what is going to be on my tombstone? Why am I here? What am I here to do? What have I been brought to this moment right here to do? And I then, right from that second, that was that I call those butterfly moments, and maybe they aren't as extreme when other people have them, but we all have had those moments where everything just comes together, and it's just you, and you're aligned, and you're authentic, and you're in flow. And later that, got home that night, told my wife what happened, and she said, "You need to quit your job." That's the first thing she said. "You need to quit your job."
Wow.
And
That's a supportive
I was
wife.
like, "Oh, yeah." And she said, "There's this guy, Deepak Chopra. I never heard of him before." She goes, "There's this guy, Deepak Chopra. He's doing a meditation retreat." And I'd started meditating when I was in college, but crisis meditator, on, off, let it slip
Mm-hmm.
away. And essentially, she said, he's doing this meditation retreat in Oxford, England. Maybe you can reconnect to this. And I was like, I'm fairly obedient. I was like, okay, I'll do that. So left my job, signed up for this thing. Never heard of Deepak. Thought she was referring to Francis Ford Coppola. I don't know why, but she said, Deepak Chopra, and I thought Francis Ford Coppola, and I'm like, how interesting that this great director is hosting a meditation retreat in England. So, but I was headed off to do that, and it was after 9/11. There were supposed to be like 3,000 people there. There were less than 50 of us. So it was very, very intimate. It was very intense. We were meditating for 8 hours a day. And by the
Wow.
third day, it was like my heart, which was like this beautiful, linen cloth that had been just immersed in black India ink. I was in such sadness and in such survivor's remorse and in such, not really having a clue of what my next step was going to be. But every single day that I meditated, it was like draping that cloth through a rushing stream, and just having, the current just wash away all that darkness. And on day 3, I had this sensation that I hadn't had probably in 15 years. Joy. I had not experienced joy in
Wow.
like 15 years. And suddenly it's like, oh my God, and it's not happiness, happy that something cool happened. It's
Yeah.
that reservoir inside of you that's so full and so, so whole.
Mm.
And so I instantly left that. Well, I didn't instantly leave that, but, headed off to the American consulate in London, got a visa to head off to India, because that's what you do after you hang out with Deepak for a week. Headed off to India and to begin my own little eat, pray, love journey without the eating and
Wow.
the love, and got like a 6-month visa and just began traveling, looking for the guru, searching for the guru,
And
searching
this is
high and low.
where,
Went into the
sorry,
Himalayas
this
to
is
visit
where
His
the naughty
Holiness.
comes in, right? You
Yes,
went in search
yes,
of the naughty
yes,
that's in the book. Okay. That I was
yeah,
wondering how
yeah.
you went from the experience in Manhattan to in India. So Deepak is a part of that process. Okay.
That was it. It was sort of like
Wow.
that thing. And I was just really searching for the guru. I was searching for like the highest level of answers and wisdom. I had so many questions, and I was, just begging to really be told what to do. So I meditated every day. I practiced yoga every day. I swam in the Ganges.
Wow.
I did everything. Went to the temples, prayed, and ultimately found the Nadi palm leaf reader, uh, and you give them your thumbprint, and they go into the back room, and they're like maybe this big. They're palm leaves, ancient palm leaves, ancient. And supposedly your life is written on a leaf. And so he
Wow.
comes back out after taking my thumbprint, and he says, okay, and this is your entire past lives. This contains the moment that you'll die in this life. This contains your health, your wealth, your happiness, your relationships, and your future lives. It was pretty intense. It
Wow.
was
Yeah, I
really,
was reading that in
really
the book.
intense.
And I was thinking, what is it like
Yeah.
to be told the day that you're going to die and to be told, like I've had very small past life experiences myself, and it was very heavy. It was only one that I, witnessed in a meditation, but it was so heavy. I mourned for it was such a heavy experience. So I can imagine in one sitting hearing all of these experiences plus future experiences plus the date of death in this life and what that's going to be like. That must have been surreal.
It was like an 8-hour download. And
Wow.
yeah, you're exactly correct. Hearing about your past life, hearing about what you did, the horrible things that you may have done in a previous life, if you believe in reincarnation,
Right, of
not
course.
everyone does, and it
Right?
doesn't really matter.
No.
But for someone to say, yeah, here's what you did. And I'm like, I'm not capable of that. What are you talking about? And of course, he's speaking in Tamil. And I have a translator who's translating Tamil into English. And the Nadi, the palm leaf reader, he's just like reading and he's like telling me stuff. And so like, why would I believe this? Because he's saying stuff like, oh, you had an ear surgery as a very, very young child. I'm like, how did you know that? He goes,
Right.
and your father's name is Jay,
Wow.
and like suddenly like all this stuff. And I'm like, I kept saying, you're really good. He goes, I'm just reading the leaf. It
That's
was one of those just
incredible.
amazing,
Wow.
mind blowing experiences. But yeah, finding out, your past life is horrible. Finding out the how you're going to die and when you're going to die in this lifetime, at first is a little jarring, but then you realize I got to get busy. I got work
Yeah.
to do. Um, and clock's ticking. I don't have time to
Yes.
waste here. So that really
Yes.
allows me when I find myself in a situation and I'm like, watching streaming something on TV that's just wasting my time, or I'm sitting in an inane conversation. I'm like, I don't really have time for this. I got work to do.
I love that. I feel that way naturally. I feel like something that I've always been present to is how limited our life is and how short our lifespan is. Even when I was little, I remember being sent to the school counselor and them being like, "Oh my gosh, you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulder." Because I was like, "We're all gonna die, and we only have so much time." I mean, as a little kid, they were like, "Settle down, Nastasha. Go play on the playground." And I've just always been like that. So I struggle. A lot of people are like, God, give yourself a break. But I'm like, I don't like to watch TV. I don't like to vet. I feel like I'm on a mission and I need to get things done because I'm not here I don't know for how long. Wasn't given the opportunity to learn that in this lifetime yet, about the
Wow,
date of my death. But
you were a very wise child, Nastasha.
I came in, they say, is it nature versus nurture? And I always say, I think it's nature because the environment I was brought into doesn't explain me, so to speak. So I think I just came in wired a certain way on a mission.
Yeah.
But who knows? I'd love to meet a leaf reader at some point in my lifetime and learn a little bit more about what I'm supposed to be doing here.
Well,
Like
they
you,
always
I'm
say,
searching.
when you're meant to meet the naughty, you will.
That's amazing. Yeah, they say like when the student is ready, the teacher arrives, and I've been like, gosh, what else do I need to do? I haven't met my teacher yet. I've been trying, but I guess I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so after you meet the Nadi and you learn all of this stuff, what happened next for you? Like what was that next, what do you do? You get this information and you realize how limited, this life is and what you're supposed to be doing here and the purpose of it all. And then
Honestly, I sobbed for about 12 hours. I
wow.
just sobbed. And it was too intense. It was so heavy and it was so transformational and it was so suddenly, it was sort of like the answer to what's going to be on your tombstone. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know, but I better begin right now. I won't work in an inane job anymore. I'm not going to work for the man. I'm not going to do things that don't resonate with me. I every moment of my life needs to be so much more intentional.
Oh.
And so I was a couple of weeks later, after I finished sobbing, and I was really just doing a lot of it's like a giant shavasana. I was just doing a lot of integration of all this stuff, just allowing it into my heart and into my physiology, into my energy, into my emotions, into my physiology. And I was a few weeks later, I was laying in a hammock in a cashew forest in Kerala, southern India, very,
Okay.
the southern tip of India. And I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and I'd been reading it for months while I was in India, walking through India, reading the Bhagavad Gita every single day. It was written 300 BC, so it's 2,300
Wow.
years old. It's a book that Gandhi read every day. Ralph Waldo Emerson read it. Um, uh, Einstein read it every day.
Wow.
And so there I was trying to emulate those people,
Of
attempting
course.
to, read it every day. And I'm laying in this hammock, and I read chapter 2, verse 48, which I'd read hundreds of times before then. But in that moment, as these parrots were squawking in this forest, shrieking at the top of their lungs, giant, gorgeous, multicolored parrots and birds and macaws. And suddenly I read Yogasta Kuru Karmani, which in Sanskrit, Yogasta means establish yourself in the present moment. Kuru Karmani, then perform action.
Wow.
And I don't know why, but that just hit me like a lightning bolt. And it's like, yes, that's how I should live my life. I should absolutely get still and then make my move. Sit down to rise up. It was all so clear. So I
Wow.
raced home. Well, can't really race from southern India. I
Not so
raced to
much.
the bus stop and waited there for 2 days for a bus to come. And then that bus took about 4 days to get to Mumbai.
Oh
And
my
then I got to
gosh.
the airport and hung out in the airport for about 30 hours. And then the flight was about 28 hours. So I was
Oh my
rushing home.
gosh.
But I got home and I was meditating morning, evening, night. I must have been meditating 10 hours a day, every single day. And after 3 weeks, my friends came as a group. They came, they were like, "Hey, what's going on?" I go, "I don't know. I'm just loving life. I'm meditating every day." They go, "Yeah, we know. This is an intervention. It's a little bit of a problem. Remember how when you came home, you said, Yoga sta kuru karmani, get still, and then perform action? Well, you've just been still. You've been sitting in this house. We've invited you out like 100 times. You have not left the house. You are only sitting here meditating, and you need to break it up. You need to they were like, why don't you learn to teach other people meditation so at least you can do something with it? And I was like, I'm
Wow.
from Queens, New York. I don't care about anyone else's meditation. And they were like, listen, forget about the altruism part. But if you really want to learn something, you care so much about this thing, learn to teach it. Learn the mechanics. Learn it from the inside out.
Wow.
And they go, check out your friend Deepak. He's got like a facility in an institute in Southern California. Go there and get certified. And again, I'm fairly obedient. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so I headed out to California to immerse really deeply into meditation teacher training. And I'd already fulfilled, I didn't even know it, but going to that 8-day experience in Oxford was one of the components, one of the requirements to get certified in this
Okay.
particular type of meditation. So then I went to the other one. Again, I figured there'd be like 500 people. There were 30
Wow.
people at this other component. And we went around the room, everyone saying what they do. And I said, well, actually what I do, I just sit around and meditate these days. That's what I do. I haven't worked in close to a year now, and I have no money left. But here's what I did in a past life. I turned companies around. I was a mergers and acquisitions advisor, and I was working in New York, and I help companies that are struggling to get strong and to rebuild and to thrive and step into their power. And so we were meditating one afternoon, like 2 days later. It was July 14th because that's Bastille Day, Liberation Day. And Deepak and David Simon, his partner, approached me and said, hey, could we talk to you for a bit? And I said, I'm in the middle of meditating. Could you like wait? So here, I can't even believe that I was telling like these two master meditators, could you chill? Because I'm still in my bliss right here. And so after the meditation was over, I said, what's the deal? They said, you mentioned that you can help turn companies around. We haven't really had a big turnout since 9/11. Maybe you could support us. Would you become our chief operating officer? And I was like,
Wow.
done. I was done. No barrier to entry. I didn't say, how much will you pay me? I didn't say,
Right.
whatever. I was like, done. I said, here's what I'll do. I'll go back to New York. Each week, I'll give you guys marching orders. You'll implement. You'll tell me how it went at the end of the week. And they were like, no, you need to stay here. You need to be here and breathe the air. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll do that. And they said, okay, when can you start? I said, right now. And then I got certified, a
Okay.
couple of months later. Then I was the COO. Then I became the lead educator. And then after several years, they appointed me the dean, the first dean of
Wow.
Chopra Center University. So I had
Wow.
gone from, a dabbler to a student to a teacher to the dean of the university. And because every
Incredible.
single day, that's all I did. And that was my life. And again, I was pretty selfish about it. I didn't do, I wasn't going to get certified to teach anyone anything. I didn't care about anyone else's meditation. But at a certain point, after a few months of really connecting to like a powerful, powerful practice and understanding the source material and the background and the mechanics and the practice and all that stuff, I was like, you know what? I need to share this with people. This stuff
Wow.
is gold. I need to tell as many people as possible. And that really began my career of sharing, helping people connect to the stillness and silence that rests within so they can make more conscious choices. That worked for me,
Mm.
and I want to share that with everybody.
That's so beautiful. It's fascinating to hear your story. I'm always curious how people got started with meditation and, what that journey looked like for them. I feel like it's different for everybody. Years ago,
Yeah.
I heard meditation was good for me. This is about 15 years ago when my relationship with meditation started, if you can call it that. And I remember, okay, meditation is good. All right, let me sit down and get still, and then it was like the voice and all the things, and I struggled. So I was like told about this app called Headspace. I was like, okay, I'll get the app and I'll do the thing, and you set the timer, and okay, is it been 5 minutes yet? Has it been 10? I struggled so hard with it. And one day I read this book. This is maybe now, I don't know, maybe like 8 years ago, even 7 years ago, a few years ago, I read a book by Michael Singer, The Surrender Experiment. And
Yeah.
reading that book and hearing it, the way he describes meditation was as if it was like this grand love affair, like the thing that wasn't I don't know if that was the whole point of the book, but for me, that's what really stuck. It was like, what did he find? Because I want that. Like, whatever that is that he has with meditation, I don't have that, but I want that. And so I kind of went on this
Right.
journey trying to find that for myself. And it took, I've read all these Joe Dispenza books and I've done all these guided meditations and I've tried all these things. And, I've come to where I am today. I made a commitment 2 years ago to meditate every single day without exception. And that's, it took a long time for me to start to see any impacts of that. For me, I was very judgmental with myself. I'm kind of one of these people, if I don't see immediate results, it's not working, I'm not doing it right. I can be very hard on myself. And I remember, I'd be so blissed out. I'd be so deep in meditation and just in this place where I never wanted to come out of, and then I'd have to come out because, the alarm would go off or, a kid would wake up or something was going on, and I'd be like out, in, doing whatever the mom life, busy mompreneur life, and one of the kids would leave some dishes in the sink or something. And I'd lose my temper and I'd be like, what is the point of meditation? Like, I can't, and I started to realize like meditation for me isn't just in the privacy of my own room and space and my meditation chair, but it's also like what I bring into my life and you know
Right.
learning how to calm myself in the midst of life, in the midst of the busyness and stuff. So it's been a really fun journey for me just the last 2 years, and I have so far to go. But for someone like you, who you had found meditation in college, you mentioned, and then you had this career and you kind of, I wouldn't say went away from it, but you weren't an avid meditator until you have this experience. And then you go to the Deepak Chopra thing. But at that Deepak Chopra thing, you mentioned meditating 8 hours a day. And even me, like, I think the longest I've ever meditated is maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And, when I tell people that, it seems so daunting for them. If you told me that when I first started trying to get through 15 minutes, I would have been like running for the hills. So can you speak on that? What was that like for you going from, maybe not having a strong meditation practice to going to this thing where you're being told, I feel like some people would be turned off like 8 hours a day. There's no way I could do that and maybe not go. So can you speak on that a little bit? What was that like for you finding that and going into that space?
Well, honestly, I showed up with a beginner's mind. I showed up purely, you know, pain can be a really powerful motivator. Extreme, agony and suffering, very,
Mm-hmm.
very powerful motivator. I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew what I didn't. And I knew that I had to just keep, even if it was crawling on my hands and knees, had to keep moving in the direction of something that was going to nourish me at a higher level. And, that's why I say, a lot of people, they'll say like, I hate my job, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
stuck in this relationship. And I know some people actually are stuck in abusive relationships where to leave it would be horrifying. And at a certain point, they resign themselves to staying there. But, if you're not being held captive in that relationship and it's abusive in any way, you need to get out of that. You need to
Mm-hmm.
start with nothing. You need to, allow, what's that Rumi line? When I let go of who I am, I become who I might be. That type
Mm-hmm.
of thing. We need to acknowledge, have the self-acknowledgement that we have choices inside,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not stuck. And the past is carved in stone. So if we want our world to be better in whatever way, we have to almost release everything so new things can come in. We can't be a
Mm-hmm.
receiver of anything if we don't open up.
So
If your
true.
heart is closed, nothing new's coming in. If your hands are squeezed tight, you can't
Mm-hmm.
hold on to anything new. You can't
Mm-hmm.
accept anything. So I had approached this with like, okay, and we all do that. There's been moments in our life where we just surrender, and then the magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how did that even happen? Well, because we weren't clinging so hard to
Mm-hmm.
this fixed idea of what was supposed to unfold. And so I showed
Completely.
up with beginner's mind. And I'll tell you a funny story. I started meditating when I was in college. It was an experimental Asian studies class, and there were 12 of us. It was a Zen meditation. We sat in a circle on the floor, no cushions, no nothing. We were just like, and imagine this is like, I was like, who would want to do this? We're just sitting on the floor, you know, in in full lotus, like out of nowhere. Here's the instruction: rigid spine, and in the corner, our Zen master stood. We were instructed to raise our hand when we had a thought. In his hand, he carried an 18-inch bamboo stick known as a keisaku. So when we raised our hand, because we were having a thought, he would come over and thwack us on the back, hit us
Oh
hard
my
with this stick
gosh.
on the back. Like now, in our current school environment, that person could be sued for like $20 million, and
Yes.
the school would be out of business.
Yes.
But back then, we were like, "Ow, ow!" So I found myself lying to my Zen master because a thought would come into my head, and I'm like, "I'm not letting anyone know. I will never reveal that I am having a thought." And of course, we have between 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. That's like a thought
Uh-huh.
every 1.2 seconds. They don't stop when you close your eyes
No.
to meditate. They're there as well. So, really, what we're cultivating when we meditate is our ability to go, oh, I'm in thought land now. Let me drift ever so gently back to the object of my attention,
Mm.
whether that's watching your breath, whether that's a body scan, whether that's repeating a mantra, whatever that looks like. But I didn't know that at the time, so I just dropped that class after several weeks. I was like, this is not good. But I loved how meditation was making me feel, especially
Mm.
kids in school who were so stressed out between the bullying and the
Yeah.
studying and the peer pressure and all that stuff. And I was finding such peace, but not when I was in the
No.
meditation class. So I quit that and quickly got into candle gazing with this friend of mine. I was like, hey, you know what? That feels pretty I like that. And then I got into mantra, and then tantra, and then mindfulness, and then vipassana, and all these different types of things. Some of them for weeks, some of them for years,
Wow.
and even got into chocolate tasting meditation, which I
That
still
is a
do today.
meditation. Sign me up.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, that's the object of your attention. You just hang
Okay.
out, um, and um, so I got really on and off and on and off. But as I got more involved in the corporate world, I started making excuses. I'm too busy.
Mm,
And ultimately, I traded my early morning meditation ritual in for an early morning train ride to work.
mm.
And I traded my evening meditation in for a glass of scotch.
Ah,
And boom, meditation was gone, but so was balance.
yep.
So I was very, very aware how unbalanced I was feeling. So when I showed up at that meditation retreat in Oxford, England, with Deepak Chopra, and I was still looking for Francis Ford, people were like, "Look, it's Deepak Chopra," and I was like, "Where's Francis Ford Coppola? Where's is he filming this? What's gonna happen here?" Um, and ultimately became very, very close with Deepak. I've never met
Aw.
Francis Ford, but that was like a beautiful situation. So I think that it's the teaching of the beginner's mind, and it's yes, it's a Buddhist teaching, but if we can show up to anything with fewer expectations, then we can allow the moment to unfold. So many
Mm,
times, even in a conversation, where before a person even finishes their sentence, right? Before anything, we're answering. It's
mhm,
like, I know what you're going to say, so you don't even have to say
mhm.
it. I'm just going to answer it, which is not just rude, but you're cutting off the energy. You're cutting off, the beauty of that
Completely.
moment. And so that was really where that teaching crystallized inside of me to,
Wow.
like, let me show up. Let me not be the smartest person in the room. Let me not
Mhm.
be the person who has the answer to this moment. Even if I'm asked a really tough question, perhaps my response is maybe, maybe
Okay.
not. Or what if it wasn't true? And so I sort of began that journey of just allowing the moment to
Mm,
unfold. And of course, these are the core tenets
right.
of any meditation practice. Just show up and settle. But over the last bunch of years, I've worked a lot with Marines up in Camp Pendleton, right up the road from my favorite choice, and um, and I work with a lot of cops through an organization known as Blue Courage. I've been training law enforcement in San Francisco, SFPD, for over 10 years now. And so
Amazing.
I'm teaching people who aren't into woo woo. They're not pulling
Mhm.
angel cards, and they don't want to be listening to Sanskrit or the Bhagavad Gita or
Uh-huh.
any of these types of things. And so I've really, over the years, cultivated um, how shall I language this so you best get it? We have to meet people where they are. How
Right.
can I best share these teachings? Now, it doesn't mean I teach what I want to teach, what's inside of me, what my heart tells me,
Mhm.
just like at choice, you make what's inside your heart, but
Mhm.
oh, this one, it's not such a big winner. This
Uh-huh.
one, everyone loves it. Let's make more of the stuff people
Yeah.
love. It's still coming from our heart,
Of
and the stuff
course.
that no one is buying or is interested
Yeah.
in, maybe we'll work a little harder to get it out there, but if no one does it, we'll move on and put our attention on the
Mhm.
stuff that does work. And so I think we can apply this to almost anything that we do, whether we're making the most amazing smoothies and juices and vegan foods for people, or whether we're sharing these timeless teachings with people who would otherwise just fold their arms and face in another direction. I've worked in Georgia. I've worked in a lot of different um, police academies and police precincts and groups of cops right after there's been a horrible shooting.
Wow.
And so what happens is, typically in our country, when that happens, usually the Department of Justice um, comes in and pretty much takes over that policing and says, you guys, clearly you're not managing yourself very well here. We're going to take over here, and we're going to impose certain trainings and teachings, whether it's diversity or whether it's mindfulness or whether it's leadership. There's so many different things that are important to equity. Those are the types of things really, really important that we infuse into pretty much every business and every
Right.
organization. And so, they'll be learning about leadership, and they'll be learning about why did the nobility of policing. And on month 3, I appear looking like this, in a room full of cops. And I'm like, hi, I'm here to teach you how to breathe and how to make more conscious choices, since that's not what's going on right now. And I don't scold them, but I bring it to their
Right,
attention
of
that there are
course.
tools that aren't taught
Yeah.
in academy.
Mm.
Taking a breath, getting still, yoga stakuru karmani,
Mm.
connect to the present moment, establish
Right.
yourself in the present moment, and then make your best decision. We're always better coming from stillness than we are coming from a rebound or a knee jerk. So really, fascinating. And so I've gotten a lot of self-training through figuring out, how can I better share something that's 2500, 2600 years old in a modern context, in a way that's not dumbed down, but that's really, really clear, and that someone would find value in it. And
Beautiful.
so really, over the last decade, or maybe 13 years, I've really leaned heavily on the stress component, because everyone has stress. There's 8 billion people on the planet. 8
Mm-hmm.
billion people have stress, and we can define that in a lot of different ways. But I currently define it as, well, in 2 ways. One, how you respond when your needs are not met.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime one of your needs, and that could be attention, affection, appreciation, acceptance. But there's also another great definition of stress, and that's when we perceive, it's all about perception,
Mm-hmm.
when we perceive that the demands of the moment are greater than the resources we think we have.
That's a good
Something
definition.
comes into you, and it feels bigger than what you can meet it with.
Mm-hmm.
We experience stress, and that's hormonal,
Yes.
that's chemical, that's neurological. And suddenly there's all these different ways, and meditation
Mm.
or breathing or mindfulness or connecting to the present moment is actually a neurologically proven, scientifically proven, evidence-based antidote to stress.
Wow. Well, you answered my next question, segued right into there, which are what are the benefits of meditation, for people that aren't on, that necessarily spiritual path. They're not looking for a guru. They're not trying to go to India and meet the nadi, but just like the everyday person, why would the everyday person meditate? What are the benefits? And I love that you touched on stress, stress, anxiety, all of these things. And, finding that stillness and being able to respond from that stillness, even in the everyday life, going back to what I was saying earlier, where, great, easy for me to find stillness when I've got my headphones on, my noise canceling headphones, and I've got my meditation music going, Duder, my absolute favorite, and I'm like zenned out. But then, I go out and the kids have made a mess and the dogs chewed up my favorite thing, and then it's like, can I bring that stillness into those moments, and I find that that's what meditation has helped me to do. And, of course, we're human and I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. I have a long ways to go before I become, you know, um, a Zen master, but I've made so much progress, and meditation has been a huge part of that journey for me personally. And even if it's not like in the moment, sometimes it's just in the reflection, like after maybe I've said something a little bit harsh to, someone I love, like my mom or, somebody, and it's, and my awareness has grown tenfold from previous to meditating to today. It's like I can't get away with what I could get away with before. I could do something before and then I could like excuse my behavior. Whereas now it's like the awareness is so great. It's so loud that there's no ignoring it. It's like, I feel that I've just hurt somebody and I have to acknowledge that hurt and I have to take ownership of it. And that's something that I think that I lacked a lot of awareness around because I could just, you know, fast like pace, let's go, let's do this, let's, and I would not have that stillness inside of myself to be aware of when I'd said something to hurt or offend, and or the ability to humble myself enough to take action on that. And so I think that's one of the things that you also, for me, that I've gotten out of meditation outside of managing my stress and things like that. So I love that part of the conversation. One more thing that I want to talk about is also, one thing that I've appreciated about you is that you've always referred people to Choice when they're there for your meditation retreats. And I'm curious to know if that's just, hey, it's my personal favorite place, so I'm sending people there, or does that have something to do? Does nutrition, does diet have something to do with mindfulness and meditation? I'm just curious to know your thoughts on that.
Well, ideally, I think sleep, diet, activity, and meditation. Those are like the four pillars or the four legs of the stool, something along those lines. I used to only sleep 3 hours a day. Then I got an Aura ring so I could track my sleep. Got this in March of 2020. And I had always prided myself on the fact, like, well, I only got 4 hours of sleep. Because I thought I had heard at some point that Einstein only slept 4 hours a day. And then at a certain point, I found out after like 20 years of only sleeping 4 hours a day, I found out, no, Einstein slept like 8 to 10 hours a day. I'm like, where did I
Oh
get
my
that?
gosh.
I've been living like this
Oh
total
no.
fake existence, and that's not good for you. That's not good. So I
No.
got the Aura ring so I could track all these different aspects of my sleep. So I'm like really a geek now on sleep. I'm a geek on deep sleep and REM sleep and time in bed and time asleep, and heart rate and all sorts of stuff going on, and it's all tracked on my app.
Yes, the Aura ring, for those of you that don't know, is just this super lightweight ring that tracks so many things. It tracks your exercise, it tracks your heart rate, it tracks your sleep, but not just your REM sleep. Like how deep are you sleeping, and how often are you waking? All these things are tracked by the Aura ring. It's pretty incredible. I started wearing an Aura ring a couple years ago, and you can't not become a nerd on
Right, you
sleep
become
when you wear an Aura ring, because you wake up and the first thing you want to do is like, what happened last night? How deep did I get, and how long was I
right.
there, and all
My
those things.
first
What did my
question
heart
that
rate do while
someone
I was sleeping?
right, first question that someone asks is, how'd you sleep last night? And I'm like, one moment, let me
As
check
a
the
matter of
app.
fact. Totally. I love it.
So I think sleep is really, really important. And you're right. That data can sometimes scare people. I've referred the
Mhm.
Oura ring to people, and they're like, it was too intense.
Yeah.
It was giving me so much anxiety. I couldn't do it anymore. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I get that. So diet, for much of my life, I've eaten bad things, a bag of chips every single day, diet soda, animals, there's like a whole bunch of stuff. Like, so who was I to tell someone what
Of
they
course.
should eat? But at a certain point in my life, I was like, you know what? I'm going to not eat sugar, and I'm going to not eat animals, and I'm going to not, it just didn't feel good,
Yeah.
and even, if there were times where I was like, wow, that was an amazing hamburger. And then like 15 seconds later, I'm like, I feel horrible having done that or
Yeah.
participating in that. So, but I felt, who am I to tell people? I'm not a vegan chef,
Mhm.
and, I do eat, things that are wrong, like pizza, stuff like that. So who am I to tell
Yeah.
people? But I do tell people when I go, I stopped chips. I call the enlightened exchanges. I stopped chips and I started eating celery. I get the same crunch when I'm dipping into
Ah,
my hummus, and I'm
okay.
not getting any of that processed whatever. So I'm
Yeah.
always looking for enlightened exchanges. So I don't tell
I love
people
it.
what they should eat.
Of
But
course.
when we're spending a week in meditation, we do all my teacher trainings in Carlsbad, right at the, honestly, 2 blocks from Choice, and um, and all of the events that I hold also. And we wake up, we meditate on the sand at sunrise before Choice is even open. But as soon as we're done, we meditate, and then we do yoga on the sand. And as soon as yoga class is over, it's breakfast time, and I want people to feel nourished because I'm
Yeah.
a bit of a taskmaster. I'm going to be hanging out and teaching you and meditating with you for like the next 10 hours. So I
Yeah.
want you to feel really, really good.
Right.
So I love the transparency of choice, so that I could look at like, here's everything that's in that thing. I love the fact that I could, you know, hot sunrises. You know how many hot sunrises I have had? It's in the high hundreds. I'm just
Wow.
so saying. Um, and so, especially it's like 80 degrees. Yeah, let me drink something that's gonna like even burn my lips as I'm
Mhm.
drinking it, from that spiciness. So,
Yes.
um, so so I have felt sort of like a combination, like I'm never going to send someone to a place where they are serving cows and pigs because I just don't feel right about sending
Yeah.
someone there. I don't want to endorse that. If you want to
Yeah.
do that, rock on. You eat whatever you
Totally.
want. But
Right.
it's not going to, but I'm not going to be the one sending you there. But I feel so great when I send someone to Choice because people come back, with their little whatevers, whatever they have, their little bottles. Um, their 4-pack or their eight
Yes.
pack of 6-pack of all the glass bottles. Everyone's bringing all those bottles, and of course, you can bring them back, and they get reused and recycled. It's so sustainable.
Absolutely.
But it just makes me so happy when they come back and they go, yeah, I got the most amazing smoothie, and I got this amazing, vegan tuna, vegan sushi. And I always, whenever people come to visit me from anywhere, whether it's Saudi Arabia, a friend came from Saudi Arabia, and he's like, where should we eat? And he's a big vegan advocate. I was like, we'll start at Choice.
I
We'll
love
begin
it.
begin our day at
I
Choice.
love
So
it.
it just fills me up knowing that they can't go wrong. Maybe they didn't like what they ordered the wrong thing, but just next time order any other
The other
thing
thing.
and you'll fall in love with it, and then you'll start eating right. So I believe that. I tell people, to do the Aura Ring for sleep. I tell people, do the enlightened exchange, and certainly go to Choice and load up on that Choice Juicery. And I'm not really big on activity. I walk Peaches the Buddha Princess, my dog, every morning and every afternoon. But over the last long while, I do take a hike every day around midday. And that's sort of like,
Amazing.
I don't go to the gym, I don't do any of that. So again, I can only tell people from what I experience. So when
Absolutely.
someone says, I'm looking to lose weight, I'm looking to do this, I go, stop eating chips, start eating
Mhm.
celery, take a
Mhm.
walk, use these juices and smoothies to help fuel yourself, and then meditate. You got to
I love
meditate.
that.
And I
I
believe
love
you have
that.
to start your day with meditation, and you should have a meditation in the afternoon, just because you've absorbed so much energy from your kids,
Mhm.
your friends, your siblings, your spouse, your parents, the people that you work with. There needs to be a letting go meditation.
Mm.
So I recommend to everyone, somewhere between noon and dinner time, do a 5-minute meditation where the
Wow.
mantra is let go. And as you breathe in, silently repeat let, and as you breathe out, silently repeat go. And it doesn't matter what
Mm.
comes into your head. An argument comes into your head, let it go. Frolicking
Mm.
on the beach with your puppy comes into your head, let go. Whatever it is, just let go, let go. It's like Marie Kondoing your brain. You just like suddenly shed all that stuff, whether they're grievances or stuff you took personally or anything. Just let go. And I think, though, I call those the bookends of your day. If you can start your day, because there's science that what you do in the first 30 minutes of your day determines how you will assess your day. So if we
Wow.
can start with some meditation, that's great. And if we can use that other meditation as the letting go, and then you want to rock on, do it again, and maybe do a body scan
Totally.
at night or whatever you want to do, a chakra cleansing, cool. But here's the one thing I know: none of us get enough love.
Mm-mm.
We don't receive enough love. We're not open to it, right? So once in a while, it's nice to ask for it. And none
Mm.
of us breathe enough. And if we can just remind ourselves to just take more deep breaths, perhaps every 2 hours, to suddenly go into, you don't have to have like the formal meditation, but if suddenly you're in a tight spot, maybe just take a walk and go someplace and just stand and take a few deep breaths. Maybe go into the bathroom and I've sent so many people to the bathroom to sit on the meditation cushion, in the stall and just sit there for 5 minutes and let go.
So good.
So we have total access, and you don't have to have a cushion
Mm-mm.
and rigid spine and full lotus and hand mudras. Those are all advanced techniques. How about just sit, close your eyes, and breathe and
I
allow
love
that.
that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Those are all such great tools for anybody, no matter where you're at on your meditation journey. So I appreciate you sharing those with us. And one of the things that I love that you said about like what you call it, the exchange. What is that called?
The enlightened
The
exchange.
enlightened exchange. I love that. When you were sharing that story, it reminded me of this book I read. I think it was Gandhi's grandson that wrote the book, but he shares this story about when a family traveled very far to go see Gandhi with their son who had like a sugar eating, he was eating too much sugar. And, they traveled from afar, they brought him there, and then Gandhi sent them away. And when they came back, he said, come back in like a week or two. When he came back, um, he whispered something in the boy's ear, and then the boy left and he stopped eating sugar. And the mom said, first of all, what did you say to him? And second of all, like, why did you send us away? And he said, well, I had to give myself time to quit eating sugar before I could tell him to stop eating sugar. And I thought that was really great. That reminded me of, what you were saying. It's like, I can't tell somebody to do something, like,
Right.
and I love that. I appreciate the authenticity there. And for me, I think that there's so many different ways to experience health and wellness, and everyone has their own path, just like with meditation and spirituality. But I do find that, like you said, sleep is such a key factor. I'm like you, where I used to pride myself, like, hey, I can operate on little to no sleep, and I can get through power the day even if I did an all night, or like I'm so strong, look at me. And I realized as the older I've gotten how important sleep is, and obviously the Aura Ring helped with that quite a bit. And so sleep being such a key factor in our overall health and wellness. And then also our diet. For me, the more I cleaned up my diet and the more I removed processed foods, and the closer I got to eating as clean as I could, the better I felt in my body, which helped me when it came to meditation. It helped me when it came to exercise and having the energy and the motivation, to exercise and to sleep well and to meditate, all those things. So I think it's all, it's all encompassing. It's all of those things, and doing our best. You don't have to be perfect, but just always, striving towards making the next best choice you can make, to further your health and wellness journey.
Yeah.
Um,
And I am an ambassador for certain things that have worked for me. When I stopped eating dairy, and again, sometimes stuff slips in, but when I really eliminated dairy, my digestion just became great. I think I lost like 10 pounds,
wow.
just not eating, just stop eating cheese
Yeah.
and anything, any kind of whole milk or anything along those lines. There's enough. See, that's the thing. There's a lot of food out there that is either vegetarian or vegan, and it tastes horrible. And it's like 90%. So
hmm
when someone makes that attempt for the enlightened exchange, they're like, "Ugh,
Yes.
this tastes horrible.
Nothing makes me
Give me
more
a lamb
sad.
chop.
Nothing
Give me
makes
a
me more
lamb."
sad at being,
Right,
15 years on my vegan journey, and I go to a restaurant and I'm like, you can't serve this. You're going to turn people off. You're going to make them think that vegan food is bad. There's really good vegan food, like, let me get back there. Let me
right,
show you a thing or two.
right. You're turning people into steak eaters. Stop it.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
and so when I find something that's really, um, really special, really delish. There used to be a place in Encinitas, Eve's. I haven't been there in a really long
Yes.
time. That was really great. They had like the most amazing burgers. I don't even know what was in there, but it was all
Yeah.
vegetables. And occasionally the plot. I'll go to the plot,
Yes,
but
love them.
my easy go-to, which is like when people go to Starbucks because if they like Starbucks because it's
Right.
consistent. Certain
Yes.
places it's consistent. Choice is consistent for me, so I can always say, yeah, I have this. Check it out. I know it'll be the same exact,
I love
for
that.
them. So, good on you. Oh, that's another
Thank
place
you.
I used to go.
That's another one. Yeah.
But but really, thank you so much for your dedication to the consistency and to the authenticity And because I think people come to Choice and it might be their first, vegan or vegetarian experience.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I could actually, I could do this pretty regularly. It's pretty
Totally.
good.
Totally.
So
I love that. That's my biggest goal. I think I chose a tough, industry. 1 and 2 restaurants fail in the first year. And it's a really tough, business model. And then you add integrity to that and you don't serve, booze and some of the other things that help restaurants to sustain. I believe that it's truly divine how I'm still here and still thriving after 10 years because I mean, nothing else explains it. Everyone else who got into the industry when I did more than 10 years ago has either compromised on their integrity or they've gone out of business. And we would need to do a whole nother podcast to share the magic and the stories or the butterfly moments for me that I've unfolded to keep Choice going. And my true north has always been integrity, even when I've been faced with really tough decisions, when I thought we weren't going to make it past the next 2 weeks and, didn't know how I was going to make payroll and it was such a scary time. I stayed true to my core value, which is I will go down with the ship, but I am not going to compromise integrity. And somehow we've just been magic shows up when I make those choices, those tough choices, when I'm faced with them in really difficult times. And you wouldn't believe the stories of absolute magic that is manifested to keep us here and keep us going and growing even. But it's also people like you along the way. And I'm sure there's so many more that I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet that have supported us. They recognize the quality, they recognize the heart, they recognize the integrity behind what we do, and they've chosen to support us. And I honestly believe that's a big part of why we're still standing today when many aren't. So I really
yeah,
appreciate you.
and most of the people who come to my teacher trainings, I don't really have a local Carlsbad following. People come to my teacher trainings from all over the world. It's like 95% not from California.
Wow.
And same thing with all of my events. So it's really special when people are coming to an event from South Africa or from Dublin or from, these places. And I was just in Dublin and I was
Wow.
searching for something like Choice. I'm like, if you want to open and there's nothing close, it'll blow them away.
Wow.
But people are like, oh my God, what is this? And I'm like, oh yeah, you're from Amsterdam. Yeah, nothing like this.
Totally. I just got back from Amsterdam and I searched far and wide to try to find something. Same thing in Paris, same thing in Spain. Everywhere I go, I'm trying to find something that is like me so that I can eat there. And there's nothing like it. It's so wild. I feel very, very lucky but sometimes I want to get back there and be like, hey, let me show you a thing or two. Actually wrote a cookbook, with a whole section on like smoothies and juices. I'm like, guys, get the book, read the book.
Show you how to.
Let me show you how to do this.
Coconut bacon.
Yes, exactly. Well, Davidji, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. I want our followers to be able to get in touch with you. Our people, our Choice people, how do they find you and follow you? Where do they find your guided meditations and your retreat info? Can you share a little bit of that with us before we let you go?
Sure. I've recorded over 1,700 guided meditations.
Wow. You need to update your website because it says over 1,000. Now it's over 1,700. That's wild.
Yeah. So you can find those. You can just say, Alexa, play a Davidji meditation,
yes.
or on Spotify or Apple Music. I'm on a lot of different apps as well. Okay. The Unplug app, the Insight Timer app, the Grokr app. So whether it's you just pick wherever you listen to music of some sort, Amazon Prime. Okay. there's tons of stuff, and all that stuff is free. Wherever because I want as many people meditating, and the meditations are for different situations, whether it's loss or grief or self-empowerment or self-forgiveness or self-kindness or kindness to others or regrets, grievances, like all those types of things. We can always benefit from just a little guide. I believe all meditations are guided meditations. Sometimes we're guiding ourselves, right? And sometimes we're surrendering. to a guide. So if you just go to davidji.com, you can pretty much find everything. And I will update my
Yes,
website with that
you
new
must. You
information.
must.
And you can
Also,
follow me on Instagram. I'm Davidji
okay.
Meditation.
Perfect. And your books are available on Amazon as well, which I'm thankful for. I found your book on Audible because I am an Audible junkie. I am always busy. I'm always in a car commuting from location to location or doing something. So I love to listen to books. So I found Sacred Powers on Audible and I am hooked on it. Can't wait to finish it. So it's going to
Nice.
be playing on my car.
I reached out to Morgan Freeman to read Sacred Powers, and his manager never got back to me. So I said,
Oh,
okay,
bummer.
I'll record it
I
myself.
guess I'll do. I love that though. I love when the author reads their book because I don't think anyone can read it better, in my opinion. Maybe there's a couple of authors that I thought maybe could have used some support, but I love so far your book is so amazing. Your voice is amazing. In fact, I think you're kind of well known. I think you're known for having the velvet voice. Is that a term that I've
That is
heard?
some
Okay, yes.
terminology that has been written up, and I think the Wall
Yes.
Street Journal named me that or something like
I
that.
read that before I heard your voice for the first time. Then I put on your Audible and I was like, I couldn't agree more. So very soothing voice. And the book is just so great. I love when there's stories, and learning at the same time. I learn through story and I also teach through
Right.
story. So for me, I love that. So your book grabbed me right away, diving right into those butterfly moments. And it's just been incredible. So thank you for all that you're doing in the world. I have to ask you before we go, have you answered that question? What is going to be on your tombstone?
Not yet. There's
Okay.
a lot more. There's a lot more for me to do.
Okay.
Again, I know I'm not dying in the next 15 minutes. Where I
Good.
think I know that. So there is so much more for me to do. I have more books in me. I have more videos.
I
I've
love
got
it.
at least another 5,000 meditations in me.
I love it.
Um,
I look
no, but
forward to all of
thank you.
that.
Thank you. That's, you know what, of all the interviews that I've ever done, no one's asked me that after the fact. So
No kidding.
what
Okay.
is going to be?
Yeah.
And sometimes I come up with like something catty, or stupid. But I'm not ready yet.
Okay.
Not done yet.
Love it. Love it. All right, Davidji, thank you so much for coming on today. And I just appreciate all you're doing in the world.
Thank you, Nastasha. Thank you for all the work you do. Thank you for manifesting your vision and showing us the way that, of course, if we have some vision inside of us, we can manifest our dreams and desires. And it all comes from heart because I know I've experienced it, and my community has experienced it as well. So thank you for the work you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening in. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could leave a review so we can reach more people. I might even share your review on future episodes. If you go to the link in the show notes, you can find and sign up for our newsletter so that you're notified when a new episode comes out. You can support this show by purchasing anything from the Choice Juicery online shop at choicejuicery.com. Or, of course, if you're lucky enough to live in San Diego, you can visit any of our 7 locations here in San Diego and Orange County. And please feel free to connect with me on social media at Nastasha McKeon. That's NASTASHAMCKEON. Don't forget that extra S. Or you can connect with us at the Choice Juicery Instagram at Choice Juicery. Thanks again for listening in.